Greetings, my fellow freedom loving sovereign thinkers. Thank you for tuning in to the LL3 podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the wonderful, wild and wonderful Mountain State. And today's date is Thursday, October 8th, 2020. Yeah, I'm just like having so many issues on my online. I have to do a little cleaning in my on my facility here, but my computer got too much crap in it. However, I'm just going to be mainly talking about a couple of things pertaining to our Bill of Rights culture, to House resolutions by Tulsi Gabbard, and issues on the ATF on a certain firearm they want to consider to be under the National Firearms Act of 1935, which we all know is null and void. But the ATF don't want you to know about that, right? All right, well, so first I'm going to be talking right here is from the, I can thank govtrack.us on this. And this is House Resolution 1162, expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that the federal government should drop all charges against Eric Snowden. And of course, Tulsi Gabbard was the author. And if I'm correct, it is Matt Gaetz, right? Matt Gaetz actually co-sponsors this, which is good because it was introduced September 30th of 2020. Yep, and it's essential to know these things. So let's just see what it has to say. All right, so definitely make this work. And it says here, the expressing sense House of Representatives that the federal government should drop all charges against Eric Snowden, whereas during the Senate hearing of March 12, 2013, James Clapper, then Director of National Intelligence, was questioned by Senator Ron Wyden and was asked whether the National Security Agency collected any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans, to which Clapper replied, "No, sir," and added, "not willingly," a response he later admitted was clearly erroneous. In June 2013, Eric Snowden disclosed to a selected group of journalists National Security Agency's documents exposing that bulk collection of Americans' telephone records from telecommunications provider by the Intelligence Committee was occurring. Whereas on June 21st, 2013, the Department of Justice unsealed charges against Edward Snowden for violating Section 793D and 798A3 of the Espionage Act and theft of government property under Section 641 of Title 18 U.S. Code. On June 23, 2014, the Privacy and Civil Liberties Oversight Board's report on the National Security Agency's telephone records program found no instance in which the program directly contributed to the discovery of a previously unknown terrorist plot or the disruption of a terrorist attack, and that the program significantly threatened and violated the constitutional rights of the American people. On May 7, 2015, the United States Court of Appeals for the Second Circuit ruled that 215 of the Patriot Act did not authorize a bulk collection of telephone records, and therefore such collection was unlawful. On September 2nd, 2020, the United States Court of Appeals for the 9th District ruled that the National Security Agency's telephone records bulk collection program illegal and possibly unconstitutional under the Fourth Amendment. Why is it possibly? It's illegal. It violates the Fourth Amendment. Stop flip-flopping. Whereas the United States Court of Appeals, the Ninth Circuit, found the telephone records bulk collection program did not play a pivotal role in any terrorism investigations. Those involved in the collection of Americans' telephone records have yet to be held accountable for their illegal actions, further increasing the danger of continued overreach and abuse of civil liberties. And whereas the United States government must protect whistleblowers who expose illegal and unconstitutional acts of abuse within our government, and therefore be it that the sense of the House of Representatives that 1, the National Security Agency's bulk collection telephone records program was illegal and unconstitutional, 2, Eric Snowden disclosures of this program to journalists was in the public interest, and 3, the federal government should drop all charges against Edward Snowden. And I have to admit, like-minded individuals like myself, for an example, was never surprised what Eric Snowden did, because it just got verified. And some people may have controversy with him. That's understandable. And sometimes he needs to go a little bit further. There's claims that Israeli intelligence are involved in this as well. But if he says that, he'll be called anti-Semitic. It's just an interesting claim from others that observe these ordeals as well. So yes, I do have to agree on this resolution for exonerating Edward Snowden completely. So we'll hit the next other one here that she wrote, which is H.R. 1175, expressing the sense of the House of Representatives that news gathering activities are protected under the First Amendment, and that the United States should drop all charges against the attempt to extradite Julian Assange. And she had a co-sponsor, was a Republican from Kentucky, District 4, Thomas Massey, which is good. And let's read what it has to say here. And it was released on October 2nd, okay? Express the sense of the House of Representatives that news gathering activities are protected under the First Amendment and that the United States should drop all charges and attempts to extradite Julian Assange. Whereas the freedom of news organizations to acquire and publish information is protected under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. Whereas in 2010, WikiLeaks disclosed the cache of hundreds of thousands of Department of State cables, Guantanamo Bay detainee assessments, and the United States military reports to relate to the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. The disclosure of the United States military documents exposed war crimes against civilians in the Middle East. In 2013, the Department of Justice declined to pursue charges against Julian Assange for publishing classified documents due to what justice officials described as a New York Times problem, which would cause the prosecution of other news organizations and journalists who have published classified material. On June 19, 2014, Human Rights and Press Freedom Organization sent a letter to then Attorney General Eric Holder, urging him to close all criminal investigations into WikiLeaks and Julian Assange due to concerns that actions against WikiLeaks undermine the commitment of the U.S. government to the freedom of speech. On April 11, 2019, the London Metropolitan Police Service arrested Julian Assange for outstanding warrants, including a provisional warrant at the request of the U.S. government. The Department of Justice unsealed a March 2018 indictment against Julian Assange for violation of Computer Fraud and Abusive Act. On May 23rd, a federal grand jury issued a superseding indictment, adding 17 charges against Julian Assange for violation of the Espionage Act. On June 10, 2019, the United States government submitted a formal request to the United Kingdom for the extradition of Julian Assange. Whereas the United States government prosecutors now claim that any journalist or any news organization that publishes classified material is subject to prosecution under the Espionage Act, which would have led to indictment of news organizations for the publication of the Pentagon Papers, which has happened during Vietnam. Whereas press freedom, human rights, and privacy rights organizations across 5 continents sent a letter to the government of the United Kingdom urging the immediate release of Julian Assange. Previous administrations have persecuted whistleblowers and other journalistic sources under the Espionage Act for leaking classified information. The current Department of Justice has taken the further step going after the publisher, whereas the successful prosecution of Julian Assange under the Espionage Act would allow the federal government to indict any news organization for journalists or for publishing classified information, which occurs on a regular basis. And whereas the successful prosecution of Julian Assange under the Espionage Act would have profoundly detrimental impact on news gathering and freedom of the press, now therefore be it that it is the sense of the House of Representatives that 1. News gathering activities, including the publication of leaked classified information, are protected under the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution. 2. The freedom of the press is a vital function of a free society in which government is accountable to the people. And 3. The federal government should drop all charges under the Espionage Act against Julian Assange. Well, this is what I have to say about this. Absolutely, without a doubt, because one of the areas we need to look at is press freedom. If these things go through, if they get indicted, who's going to be next? It doesn't matter if you like Julian Assange or not. Some people may claim he's an arrogant SOB and disagree with him too about the 9/11 cover-up. Many people claim he's involved with Zionist connections. But the truth of the matter is, it's freedom of the press. Not just the United States, but worldwide. So this is why I always got to say, one of these areas we need to look in to make sure that we got to protect our Bill of Rights culture, period, on this matter. And speaking of Bill of Rights culture, I'm going to read one here. It's from gunowners.org, which came out yesterday. ATF goes rogue once again, and there's a petition to have President Trump to rein in the ATF, or the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. Once again, gun owners, manufacturers, and dealers are subject to the whims of the anti-gun bureaucrats who run the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or ATF. The latest outrage is that they have reclassified Q LLC's Honey Badger pistol as a short barrel rifle, or SBR, subject to regulation under the provisions of the National Firearms Act, NFA, including a $200 transfer tax. Okay, so more punishing you for owning that firearm, right? Years after approving pistol braces and determining that a brace does not make a pistol into an SBR, rumors started to swirl that ATF was planning to reclassify these particular pistols into SBRs, but shortly after the rumors began, the National Shooting Sports Foundation claimed that they were in contact with ATF and that pistol braces were not being reviewed. ATF's new interpretation regarding the QLLC Honey Badger pistol has created uncertainty for all gun owners, manufacturers, and dealers. You can click here to read the ATF to QLLC and click here to read Q's response. This is a relatively simple issue that the ATF has complicated. GOA has had a copy of Gifford's diabolical plan to outlaw not only pistol braces, but .50 caliber ammunition, certain handguns, and the Mossberg Shockwave for close to 2 years. You can click here and go to page 7 for their false claims about pistol braces. So I will leave all this on my Spreaker page, so don't worry, folks. This is not a coincidence. One of Gifford's advisors is David Chapman, who they tout as a retired ATF agent, and it is entirely plausible that Giffords has quietly worked to convince ATF to take a look at pistol braces as well as many other previously approved firearms accessories. Pistol braces have been a source of confusion for ATF for several years. In this letter, you can look it up for yourself. The ATF said as a shooter used a brace stock, then the firearm would become an SBR. They later retreated from that position. This is but one of many reasons why GOA is pushing to repeal not part of but all of the NFA. The sad reality is that if Congress would do its job and pass legislation such as H.R. 5289, the Home Defense Competitive Shooting Act, firearms owners would no longer be forced to figure out barrel length or determine if their firearm had brace or a butt stock. Despite its lengthy name, H.R. 5289 will change federal law and allow SBRs to be bought and sold like any other rifle. In short, H.R. 5289 removes SBR from the provisions of the NFA. The modern reality is that companies like QLLC sells tens of thousands of pistol braces, equipped firearms because of the bureaucratic maze required to own SBR. Citizens should have not be forced to wait as long as 9 months, be photographed, fingerprinted, and taxed to purchase an SBR. Yep, punish you for owning things. Hey, isn't that legit? Hell no. Or alternatively, they should not be forced to figure out what barrel, brace, and receiver combination will make their newly assembled firearm a pistol and not a rifle, and thus be excluded from the provisions of the NFA. Here's what you need to do today. Scroll up to contact President Trump and let him know that you're counting on him to put a stop on this new ATF overreach and order them to reinstate the Honey Badger pistol status as a pistol equipped with a brace. Then contact your member of Congress and insist they co-sponsor H.R. 5289. There's a link for that, and I read it, so it's real good stuff, and I'll just keep that handy as well, just so you folks can know what's going on. If Congress does not regulate SBRs, gun owners will be forced to live in fear that their handgun would be called an SBR or their Mossberg Shockwave one day be reclassified as a short barrel shotgun. So more tyrannical platforms by bureaucrats, okay? And that's why I encourage every state in the union to support the Second Amendment Preservation Act. That's essential as well. And another thing we got to look at too, because this is totally considered ex post facto law, even edicts, and when I read in the Constitution here, Article 1, Section 9, it's plain and simple. That'd be clause number 3. No bill of attainder or ex post facto law shall be passed. All right, and that means anything that's considered obligation of contracts. Like it can't be impairing. Because I know on Section 10, I'll just read a brief here. No state shall enter in any treaty, alliance, or confederation, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. So, even though it's a state thing, federal government, they can't do any ex post facto laws. Can't have bureaucrats tell you what you can do, what you can't do. So that's just null and void. Because the truth of the matter is, folks, that breaches the 2nd, the 9th, and they want to tax you. You can say the involuntary servitude, the 13th Amendment. It's not that hard. So I'm going to leave Article 1 of the U.S. Constitution here as well, to make sure we're all on people are all on the same page. And this is one of the areas we got to look at. I am convinced about defunding the ATF. They've been a sham for a long time. They need to be dismantled. I don't care if you got members of your family or who work for that particular organization. Who cares? It's an illegal institution. Null and void. It's repugnant, deplorable, and I condemn it in good faith. So what I addressed here, you got to be pro-Bill of Rights completely, not just pick and choose like those career politician dimwits do in there and kind of use their attorney rhetoric, which I can just use that as toilet paper. All right, so that's how I see it. And what's your intake on it? You could, you know the drill. And that will be it. I thank everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share us on your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, if you see something that's interesting you want to check out, whatever you do, please send your correspondence with decorum. Furthermore, I'll leave the footnotes of this on my Spreaker page. If you want to get me to, send some love, donations, hit me at paypal.me/LokiLuck3. Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Keep on spreading the love. May your guardian spirits be with you.